Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com, on Roku, Dwyer Boxing and Sports News. Right? For non-boxing, check out Dwyer Sports Betting's YouTube channel. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, big fight about to happen in the United Kingdom. Right? For those who don't know, Carson Jones came out and shocked the home country fighter Brian Rose, right, by KOing him early. The folklore has it that the referee stopped the fight a bit prematurely. But of course, Rose was buzzed. Rose had been hit with some shots. Now the odds makers here, interestingly enough, as I make this video, have Carson Jones as the plus 160 underdog. The rematch is going to be in Brian Rose's backyard. A significant fact to keep in mind is that Brian Rose was stopped 2 fights before his KO loss to Carson Jones. He was stopped by KO, by Demetrius Andrade. Right? In other words, Brian Rose is in a rocky zone in his career, where he's been stopped in 2 of his last 3 fights. Nonetheless, he's the favorite here. The over-under is 8.5. How do you bet the fight? Well, I'm going to have to get off-road on this one. Right? The 8.5 is shaky to me. Over or under. Because Carson Jones did stop him early. Life is an experience with flashbacks. We all have memories. Do any of us really know what's going to happen if Brian Rose gets buzzed in the ring? Is he going to have flashbacks to getting stopped twice? Is he at the stage in his career where he's fought enough times to feel that he's no longer himself? Or is he the kind of resilient guy with a short memory who's going to get buzzed and who's going to be able to hang in there, who's not going to panic, who's not going to think that he has to get reckless because the referee might stop the fight? And you know how fights are in the UK. If you sneeze too hard in a bout, you're at risk of having the fight stopped by the referee. Right? Keep in mind, there's a long history of these European fights where guys like George Groves get buzzed by a guy he's put on the canvas, Carl Froch, and the ref, of course, jumps in and stops the bout. Be very leery of the boxing culture at the moment in the UK, which places an inordinate premium on the safety of the fighters. Folks, this is the hurt business. It's a violent sport, right? The sport actually allows for knockdowns. If a fighter is buzzed and it's early and he's still standing, what is the ref doing? Pulling the plug. Haven't the people in the stands paid real money to see a fight? Anyway, here I'm going to stay away from the over-under. Right? The bet I'm recommending is, we're going to fool around with winning propositions, they're called. Right? It's Carson Jones to win the fight. Understand, you're getting a plus 160. Right? You're getting better than even money. Much better than even money. You're getting a plus 160. It's Carson Jones, the underdog, to win the fight. Hedged with Brian Rose by decision at a plus 225. You're getting better than 2-to-1 odds on Brian Rose by decision. Style-wise, I see this as Carson Jones on his front foot. Carson Jones is trying to cause flashbacks. Right? He's going to be the aggressive fighter. He's going to be cutting off the ring. He's going to be trying to force Brian Rose in front of his fans to do something. Right? Now, the interesting thing with Carson Jones is he has 10 losses. There are fights where Carson Jones gets outboxed. Right? It's an open question on whether Brian Rose has the artillery to outbox Carson Jones. I think you're getting amazing value on the winner of the first fight at a plus 160. right? I understand this is going to be in Brian Rose's, backyard. As far as I'm concerned, it could be in Brian Rose's living room. It's a bad dynamic. If Carson Jones is able to come in low, come in on his front foot, force Brian Rose to throw punches, I don't think Brian Rose is Kell Brook. I think Kell Brook's a special fighter. I think Kell Brook's an outlier, right? Kell Brook is the one guy, believe it or not, to stop Carson Jones, right? KO him, believe it or not, since 2006, right? A lot of the KOs on Carson Jones's record are early in his career, not of late. Brian Rose has a less than 50% KO ratio. Carson Jones's chin is better than you think, and I believe this line's a little bit off kilter because the people in the UK remember the Carson Jones-Kell Brook fight. They remember the stoppage, right? The rematch. And they think that happens to Carson Jones more than it actually does, right? Carson Jones actually has a durable chin. I don't expect him to get stopped by Brian Rose. And the casino, of course, is somehow compensating me at a rate of better than 2-1. So, I like the idea of having a bet where both sides of the play are above even money. In other words, I'm going to profit if Carson Jones wins the fight or if Brian Rose wins by decision. But I want the gamblers to be clear on the risk involved. If Brian Rose comes out, and he of course has revenge on his mind, right? He wants to make up for the prior embarrassment. If Brian Rose comes out in front of his fans and gets a stoppage, you lose it all, right? Just understand the risk involved. Let me say, I'm really surprised by this line. Because whenever a fighter has been stopped twice in his last 3 fights, and he's fighting a guy who is one of the guys who stopped him, and the guy who stopped him is front foot heavy, a stalker, a guy who's going to cut off the ring, a guy who didn't win last time by lucky punch. Rather, Carson Jones was doing what Carson Jones does. And when the stalker is actually a guy who's been in the ring with top shelf talent like Kell Brook, in other words, Carson Jones is experienced, then I'm surprised the casinos would make Brian Rose such a favorite. I like the underdog here hedged with the favorite by decision, right? You should be getting at least a plus 160 on both sides of the play. That's how I see it. Let me throw in a bonus here. Joseph Parker against Bowie Tupou, right? Let me just say this. I'm expecting big punches to land in that fight. I would question whether either fighter has a back foot game. I think that's a fight between two hunters. I'm expecting a stoppage in that fight. In that fight, I know Parker's an overwhelming favorite. I know Tupou hasn't done much of late. But in that fight, I would bet distance before I take a side. Right? There, I like both guys by KO. But understand the risk involved there. If either guy, well, put it this way. If the fight goes the distance, you lose it all. For more conservative bettors, take the underdog there, Tupou, to win the fight. You're going to get something like 7-1 or 8-1 numbers, hedged with Parker by KO. Right? This way, if the fight goes the distance and Tupou wins the fight, then you win the play. But I don't expect that fight to go the distance. Right? So, expect a stoppage in that Parker-Tupou fight. That's how I see 2 fights coming up this weekend. Let me know what you think on either fight. leave your comments here in the comment section to this video. Thanks for stopping by.